As long as there's hope, we can change the future.
Your pointless heroism ends here, X! Prepare to be scrap metal!
As long as I stand, there's hope. I will defeat you!
X! X is a powerful mid-range skirmisher who can utilize a versatile multi-range kit to rack up damage quickly and push his opponent into a corner. These multi-range options can provide X with either burst or sustained damage depending on the situation, and should the player truly make use of X's unique mechanics, he can definitely feel like quite the difficult character to fight head-on. However, it's a footsie/zoner hybrid. X ends up lacking a few of the unique tools that zoners often have to deal with pressure, meaning mistakes in the neutral might be a costly affair for the Maverick hunter. And since he also sports a wide number of projectiles, characters with reflectors and absorbers might end up giving him a hard time. Thankfully, X's versatility gives him all he needs to properly keep pace with any fighter. And as an X player, it's your job to properly balance that versatility and make the most of your opportunities to maximize your damage, as it's just as important to know when to retreat as it is to know when it's time to attack. X stands as a medium-sized humanoid character, his size being close to characters like Link and Robin. Is the greatest and final creation of the late Dr. Thomas Light, X's advanced design sports far more offensive potential than that of his little brother Rock, all while also sporting a far more taxing design for players to master. This design aspect is meant to mirror the far more loose yet demanding movement of the Mega Man X series in comparison to the original Mega Man titles. As a result, X is lighter than Mega Man to compensate for his offensive upgrades, all while also sporting abilities that are designed more for pushing against opponents in mid-range, where Mega Man's options are more defensive. While that's the case, X's moveset will use the same variable weapon system that is used by his younger brother, all while also being able to take it even further thanks to the advancements of his home franchise. Also, yes, this playable version of X will coexist with the X seen in Mega Man's Final Smash, much like playable Chrom coexists with the Chrom in Robin's Final Smash. In terms of mobility options, X has 2 jumps, all while being able to wall jump repeatedly just like he can in his home franchise. As previously mentioned, X sports the same variable weapon system as Mega Man, but thanks to the advancements seen in his home franchise, X is able to take it a step further and utilize attacks that are unlike anything seen in Smash as of right now. Enter X's character mechanic that will separate him even more from his little brother: Variable Weapon Charge. By holding down either the A or B button, X will begin to build up energy in his buster, all while playing the classic Mega Man X Weapon Charge sound effect. Once at max charge, the player will be able to release the button in order to perform an empowered version of the attack that correlates to the direction they're holding on the analog stick, with this working not only for X's normals, but X's specials as well, and one of said empowered abilities is something I'd argue Mega Man should have been able to perform as well: the Charge Shot. Unlike his brother, X's Charge Shot is not locked to a smash attack, and is instead a powerful projectile option that the player can release both on the ground and in the air, and you can even perform it while on the move. While it might not pack the same punch as Mega Man's to compensate for the design aspect, the fact that you can catch your opponent with it when they least expect it, or even combo into it, makes it all the more deadly. This design for X comes from the unique way that Maverick weapons are handled in his home franchise, as unlike Mega Man, who can only charge his regular buster, X is capable of performing charge variants of every one of his Maverick abilities once he acquires a specific armor upgrade. Thanks to this unique design, this also adds an element of stance changing to X's moveset, and it's a type of stance change that's going to take some serious changes to your muscle memory in order to master. This need to hold the button and shift your charge between the A and B button in order to keep the charge but continue attacking is definitely the biggest hurdle for players to overcome, but should you get the hang of it, you'll find a character with a very satisfying playstyle and versatile design that's just as much fun to play as he is to watch. Now that you know what to expect in terms of complexity, let's now move on to X's normals and discuss just how he puts his variable weapon system to use. X's normals will mainly be comprised of various weapons he's acquired from defeating Mavericks throughout the Mega Man X series, much like how Mega Man mainly uses the abilities of Robot Masters for his normals. Also, as previously mentioned, all of X's normals have two attack methods the player can perform, with one being the standard version of the move, while the other is the charge variation that can only be performed if the player holds down the A button, with the charge move you get being determined by which direction you hold on the analog stick once you release the button. X's neutral combo is his iconic weapon of choice for any fight, and the one weapon that he starts every game with, his ever-trusty X-Buster. With this, X will be able to fire up to 3 pellets at a time, these pellets traveling notably faster than that of Mega Man's while also sporting a shorter cooldown in between each 3-shot interval. Thanks to this, X can use these shots to check his opponent's buttons and force them into corners, all while also being able to rack up damage fairly quickly if used at close to mid-range. But just keep in mind that unlike Mega Man shots, the X-Buster's hit stun will decay depending on how far away the opponent is, meaning that max range shots will act like Fox's blaster and only deal damage. If you're looking for something that can pack a punch regardless of range, perhaps the charge version of this attack is up your alley. This of course being X's iconic Charge Shot. By holding down the attack button and then releasing once you've accumulated enough charge, X will fire a medium-sized fireball that will quickly move across the screen and cover roughly twice the amount of range as his regular shots. And thanks to its quick startup, this is one of X's strongest combo enders and is a great way to turn a spacing tool into a dangerous 1-2 shock to your opponent's system. Also, as should be apparent, both X's forward tilt and his neutral air will also utilize the same attack style as his neutral combo, allowing him to fire charge shots while not only moving around the screen, but also while jumping. X's up tilt is Boomerang Cutter, the trademark weapon of Boomer Kuwanger that will have X toss out a bladed boomerang in front of himself, this boomerang traveling in a clockwise arc before circling back towards X's initial location. This attack will hit multiple times before knocking foes hit by it up into the air, making it one of X's primary combo starters and a great anti-air option thanks to its long-lasting hitbox. But if the move is charged, X will toss out 2 cutters as opposed to 1, this second cutter dealing more damage and covering a wider arc than the first one. However, in exchange for the extra projectile, this move's cooldown will become notably longer, and in turn, make it much harder for X to follow up unless he's using very specific attacks. But on the bright side, it does give you enough time to charge a weaker charge shot. So if you're quick enough, you can jump and shoot your opponent off screen. X's down tilt is Spinning Blade, the trademark weapon of Crushed Crawfish that will have X launch out a spinning blade from his buster, this blade sweeping along the ground and knocking out the opponent's balance before it launches them upwards. This move's hitbox will stay active as long as the blade is visible, allowing for it to check buttons for a considerable amount of time. But if you want an attack that is truly designed to frame trap and check buttons, the charge version of this move is all you need and more. When charged, instead of launching on a blade, X will instead throw out a larger blade that will rapidly spin in place, with it dealing far more damage and locking opponents in place before launching anything in its path away. On top of that, this move sacrifices recovery time for much stronger shield damage, making this a very dangerous neutral tool if you can catch your opponent making an untimely mistake. But if used haphazardly, you'll find that this is an incredibly easy attack to punish. X's dash attack is Tornado Fang, the trademark weapon of Tunnel Rhino that will have X dash forward with a large drill attached to the end of his X-Buster, this move dealing rapid damage before launching opponents away at the end of the move's path. Thanks to this move's piercing effects, X will pass through his opponent's shields as long as the move remains active, this allowing the player to potentially escape the corner or reposition their opponent. But if the move is charged, X will instead launch the drill halfway through the dash. This turns Tornado Fang into a makeshift projectile, with it being able to drag opponents across the screen or turn an opponent's shield into mulch. But just make sure it doesn't get launched back at you, because that destructive power goes both ways. For his get-up attacks, X will attack around himself with either a kick or a short-range blast from his X-Buster, all while unleashing a shotgun-like blast from his Buster for his ledge attack. For his smash attacks, X will tap into 3 of his more powerful techniques from throughout the Mega Man X series, with these moves being designed to hit hard and cover a sizable range. All 3 smash attacks will support their own charge variation, with the only way to use them being to charge each smash attack to max power. While it might be a bit risky, the extra power they provide will make it more than worth your time and potential safety. X's forward smash is Magma Blade, the staple ability that X acquired from Blaze Heatniks in X6 and the only one of X's attacks that will have him utilize Zero's Z-Saber. With this, X will pull the blade off of his back and perform a wide-hitting vertical slash, the blade of the sword glowing a vibrant orange as it cuts into anything in its path with a blazing multi-hit strike. This is X's strongest kill confirmed by a notable margin, and its physical properties will make it a move that any reflector-happy foe will need to be on their toes for. But if you're looking for something that can make even your average zoner a little wary, look no further than Magma Blade's charge variation. At max charge, Magma Blade will not only have X perform the same powerful sword slash, but also have the blade unleash a large wave of fire that will rush forward and through all opponents in its path. While the fire will deal less damage and knockback than the actual sword, combining both hits together can secure kills at unexpectedly low percents. Just be sure you take care, as while the fireball has piercing effects, it can be reflected back at X, meaning that it's far safer to hit with both the sword and the fireball at the same time. X's up smash is Rising Fire, the trademark weapon of Magma Dragoon from Mega Man X4 and a destructive anti-air option if used effectively. With this, X will build up burning energy within his arm before performing a Rising Punch, a large fireball flying out of his buster and high up into the air. This move's greatest strength is its incredible vertical range, as the fireball will take the opponent up into the air with it before exploding. But it should be known that this move counts entirely as a projectile, meaning that opponents with reflectors will be able to punish X's attempts to challenge platforms. If you're looking for something a bit more physical, look no further than Rising Fire's charge version, with this having X perform a flaming uppercut punch before launching the fireball. This is X's strongest anti-air option by a notable margin, thanks especially to X's upper body being intangible during the startup frames of the attack. But hitting an opponent with the uppercut punch will lock them into the fireball, making it all the more dangerous for opponents on the ground level with you. Of course, as should be expected, this move's recovery will increase greatly if you choose to go with this option, so make sure you make it count. Finally, X's down smash is Double Cyclone, the trademark weapon of Storm Owl from Mega Man X4 and a great Okizeme option thanks to its huge hitbox and windbox properties. With this, X will unleash a pair of swirling vortexes on either side of himself, these vortexes dealing rapid damage before launching foes away after the final hit. While active, these vortexes will sport two unique windbox properties, with the first pulling opponents in during the rapid strikes and the second pushing foes back during the final hit, making it extra dangerous for any foe trying to get up on the ledge. If you're looking for something a bit more powerful but less versatile, however, perhaps the charge variation of this move will be more to your liking. At max charge, X will forego creating vortexes and instead surround himself in a large spinning whirlwind, this move covering a larger vertical space in exchange for losing a bit of horizontal range. While that's the case, this additional vertical range makes this version of the move a very dangerous tech chaser, but is much slower to recover from as a result. X's great grounded mobility is complemented by some excellent aerial mobility, with his airspeed and fall speed being a bit higher than that of his younger brother Rock. As for his aerials, X will continue to utilize a variety of Maverick abilities to rack up damage and challenge any foe trying to approach him from the air, with a number of his charge aerials halting or altering his aerial momentum thanks to the extra punch they pack. Since we've already covered X's neutral air, we're instead going to move straight into X's forward air, which is called Fire Wave. As the signature ability of Flame Mammoth, this move will have X release a rapid-hitting wave of fire from his buster, this wave covering a sizable distance before launching the opponent away with the final strike. In terms of usability, this is an excellent neutral option and a fantastic way to check buttons, thanks especially to the fact that this move's hitbox is entirely disjointed. However, as great as it can be at keeping opponents back or frame trapping opponents at the ledge, its kill power is below average to make up for its lingering hitbox and range. If you're looking for something a bit more powerful and a bit more risky, then maybe the charge variation of Fire Wave is for you, with this move having X launch a powerful piercing fireball from his buster, it covering a sizable range in front of himself as the force of the blast launches him backwards. There's no limit to how many opponents this attack can strike, so it's very possible to secure multi-kills with this attack. If used properly, it can be considered one of X's most powerful combo enders, but the extra blowback from this move means it's next to impossible for the player to follow up after firing. However, it's not all bad, as the blowback can potentially push X out of the way of an incoming punish. Just try to not rely on it too much, as opponents that can predict this move can definitely close the gap and punish you before you have a chance to recover. X's up air is Storm Tornado, one of the most iconic abilities in the Mega Man X series and the staple ability of fan favorite Maverick, Storm Eagle. When used, X will aim his buster upwards before releasing a cyclone of air, the force of this attack pushing him down as the cyclone will rapidly damage and drag opponents upwards before launching them away. This move's launch power is immense, with it even being able to outclass Mega Man's air shooter despite its lack of a windbox. But the fact that X cannot chase his opponent after attacking might prove a bit troublesome if you're trying to rush your opponent down. Thankfully, the charge variation of this move can bypass this nasty weakness, with it having X create a large swirling whirlwind around himself that will halt his aerial momentum as he launches everything in his path skyward. In comparison to the regular version of Storm Tornado, this charge variation sports more power and a larger hitbox in exchange for an incredibly slow cooldown and landing lag, which will leave X wide open to incoming damage on the recovery. Despite this, if you use your versatile options to frame trap your opponent, you'll find that this move is far more safe than you think it is. X's back air is Shotgun Ice, the trademark ability of Chill Penguin that will have X turn around in midair and release a short-range blast of ice from his buster. This powerful close-range blast sporting enough damage and knockback growth to secure kills at fairly early percents. Thanks to these stats, this is X's designated aerial kill confirm and a great way to catch an opponent off guard thanks to its relatively fast startup speed. However, this move's power and speed are counterbalanced by this move having some fairly poor range, meaning you're going to need to get very close to your opponent if you want to take that stock. Thankfully, the charge variation of this move can alleviate this weakness a bit, as the Icy Blast will also launch out a wave of icicles to increase this move's range by a notable margin. Just make sure you actually have a chance to hit, as this move's startup and recovery speed are notably slower to compensate for the extra range. On top of that, this move doesn't gain any extra damage if charged, only range. But since the launch power is already strong as is, I feel you won't notice it that much, if at all. Finally, X's down air is Ground Dash, the trademark ability of Ground Skavarich that will have X raise his arm into the air, a boulder forming on the end of his buster before swinging down and smashing into the face of his closest opponent. Thanks to this move's incredible power, opponents hit with it will be smashed straight down as the boulder breaks apart from the force of the strike. And thanks to the boulder's size, this move's range is one of its greatest strengths. Despite this, however, trying to land with this move is not advised, as this move's slow startup and landing leg make it a very easy move to counter if your opponent sees it coming. While a lot of X's other charge moves add extra effects or damage to his attacks, the charge version of Ground Dash will instead take the move's strengths and make them even more powerful, as instead of smashing his opponent with a rock, X will launch the rock down through the air at high speed, greatly increasing this move's range and allowing the player to strike opponents far below the ledge. As unlike Mega Man's Hard Knuckle, the rock will not disappear if X touches the ground while the rock is active. While this can be an incredibly strong edge-guarding tool if used effectively, the weaknesses of Ground Dash are also accentuated during the charge version, as this move's recovery speed is notably worse than that of the regular version. As a result, it's best to make sure that rock has a chance to hit your opponent if you're using it to try and edgeguard. And if you use it off stage, well, just don't fast fall and you'll be fine. X will grab his opponent by utilizing the ability Strike Chain. This trademark weapon of Wire Sponge granting X a long-range tether grab that will pull opponents in close from quiet distance away, all while also granting him an extra tether recovery option. For his pummel, X will knee his opponent. As for his throws, X will utilize a variety of close-range Maverick abilities to set opponents up for potential damage. But despite their flashy designs, X lacks a kill throw, meaning the most you'll be going for with your throws is combos and potential frame traps off of repositioning. However, it gets all the more terrifying when X is capable of charging his buster during these throws, meaning that even though X can't use his throws to secure kills, their ability to set up kills can be downright incredible. X's forward throw is Soul Body. This trippy throw option having X project a series of copies forward, these copies charging into the grabbed opponent in order to launch them away with some decent force. In comparison to X's other options, this throw's damage and knockback are fairly low, with it at most being able to push opponents back into mid-range or offstage for a potential setup. However, what it lacks in strength as a throw is more than made up by its ability to link into X's charge shot at nearly any percent value, making this a dangerous 1-2 punch that can confirm kills effectively and make it all the more dangerous to get within X's grab range. X's up throw is Wind Spiral, the trademark ability of Spiral Pegasus that will have X perform a rising punch into the air, his wind-charged fist releasing a tornado as it launches his opponent upwards. With the extra wind box provided by the attack, this is X's strongest throw and the closest thing he has to a kill throw once his opponent hits a high enough percent threshold. However, while the wind box can help with securing kills if you're in a desperate situation, it might make it difficult to follow up with attacks unless your opponent is at very low percent values. Well, attacks that aren't Storm Tornado anyways. X's back throw is Magnet Mine, the trademark ability of Magna Centipede that will have X reposition his opponent behind him, all before launching out the aforementioned mine that will explode on impact and send his opponent flying. This can be regarded as a more powerful version of X's forward throw, with it sporting notably more damage and knockback than that of Soul Body, but in return for said boost in power, it's in turn also much harder to consistently land charge shot follow-ups as your opponent reaches the higher percent threshold. As a result, it's best to use this more for its intended purpose than that of a setup option, as it sports enough strength to even toss the heaviest fires back into mid-range at early percents. Finally, X's down throw is Spin Wheel, the trademark ability of Wheel Alligator that will have X knock out his opponent's balance, all before dropping a spin wheel on them that will deal rapid damage to the downed opponent. Once the damage ends, the opponent will be bounced off the floor and up into the air, putting them in the prime position for X to follow up with either a grounded or aerial attack. At low to mid percents, the player can use this move as a combo starter or follow up with a jumping charge shot, or even both should your opponent be at a low enough percent threshold. However, since X's damage output is so high, chances are also high that it will quickly lose its value in X's game plan as the match progresses. And since the launch angle will make it quite difficult to follow up with moves like Storm Tornado, it's best to stick to only using this throw for the early percent lead. We're now moving on to X's specials. And this is where we'll get to talk about some more intricate Maverick abilities that this renowned hunter can use to control space and pressure opponents from mid-screen. Where each attack beforehand felt fairly straightforward in terms of purpose, these attacks by comparison are far more versatile, with each having unique effects that are designed to work off of one another to create some nasty frame traps. And yes, much like his normals, each of these specials sport a regular and charge variation. However, where the charge variations of other moves are mostly just stat buffs, the properties of these specials will be altered far more drastically in order to help them stand out. They also combo fairly well into and from his other attacks, and if your opponent doesn't fear your charge shot yet, they definitely will when they see all the ways you can link into it. Starting with his neutral special, X will make use of a multi-purpose projectile attack that can be used as anything from a nasty trapping tool to one of his safest damage dealing options if used effectively. The trademark ability of Overdrive Ostrich, this is Sonic Slicer. With this, X will wave his arm through the air, launching at a pair of projectiles from his buster that will move in two different directions, diagonally up and diagonally down, and once one of these projectiles comes into contact with a solid surface, it will bounce off said surface and change its attack trajectory, with it being able to bounce up to 4 times before disappearing. Now, at first glance, this move might seem like your basic fireball with a couple of extra design aspects to separate from moves like Hadouken, but there's far more to this move than you might expect. Once Sonic Slicer bounces off of a solid surface, the bounce projectile will not only pick up in speed, but will also have its damage increased, with 3 bounces maximizing these stat boosts and creating a fairly powerful pair of projectiles should both of them land. This might be difficult, however, as very few stages, let alone competitive stages, have a wide amount of solid surfaces for the projectiles to bounce off of. They will bounce off of platforms, but not every stage has platforms, let alone platforms in effective areas like Kalos Lake or Battlefield. So how does one work around this? Well, thankfully, X has 2 ways of maximizing Sonic Slicer's potential. By combining it with his other specials, and more importantly, charging the move. If X's buster is fully charged and the player releases the B button, X will launch a series of 3 energy blades up into the air. These blades launching opponents upwards on hit and growing in strength the further they move away from X. A unique vertical take on the standard charge projectile, this version of Sonic Slicer is purely designed to deal damage and confirm kills off the top of the screen. And unlike your average charge projectile, the player can combo into this move using attacks like Storm Tornado, Boomerang Cutter, and Spinning Blade, making it all the more dangerous. Just be sure you take care when throwing this out without a follow-up, as opponents with reflectors can set the blades back at X to do nearly fatal damage. Moving on to his side special, this is where X will utilize a Chun-Li Maverick ability to cut off sections of the stage and empower Sonic Slicer's bouncy properties. This is the trademark ability of Blizzard Buffalo, Frost Shield. This move's design will take inspiration from both its regular appearance in Mega Man X3 and its appearance in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, as instead of launching it in a straight line, X will launch it in a downwards arc towards the ground. If an opponent is in the path of the dart before it touches the ground, it will burst on contact and freeze them in place for a short time, allowing X to potentially follow up with another attack if the player acts fast enough. If the dart makes contact with the solid surface, however, it will dig into the ground and create a small wall of ice in its place. This wall will block all players from passing through it, X included, and will only disappear after either 5 seconds pass, the wall takes 15% damage, or X launches out another Frost Shield dart, as only one wall can be active at any given time. However, should an opponent try to destroy it with a projectile, they'll quickly find out that the wall also acts as a makeshift reflector for them, and a deflector for X. What this means is that X can toss any projectile the player can think of at the wall and it will be sent back in their direction, all while still counting as his projectile. And as a result, the player can use it to create all sorts of trickery. Is your opponent predicting a charge shot at close range and you've got a wall to your back? Turn around, shoot the wall, and watch as your opponent preemptively drops their shield in order to try and punish you. Is your opponent trying to play a keep away game and you've got a wall on the other side of the stage? Try using a running charge shot or a charge dash attack that will miss its initial shot but hit the opponent on the back on the rebound. Is your opponent trying to recover high and you've got a frost shield on the ledge? Shooting the wall with the charge shot will change its shot trajectory and launch it skyward. Although, chances are high that's a trick that will only work once. There's a ton of unique versatility this move adds to X's mostly projectile-based kit, but one of its main uses in a fight is to work in tandem with Sonic Slicer, giving the projectiles more surfaces to bounce off of and, in turn, giving an overall boost in the move's effectiveness in a fight. This will still take a bit of time to get used to though, especially since Sonic Slicer's unique trajectory is unlike any of X's other attack options. But if trying to bounce your projectiles off the wall proves difficult, why not take your wall and push it somewhere else? Enter the charge variation of Frost Shield, this large icy projectile covering a wide horizontal range and pushing all opponents and projectiles in its path along with it. Once the projectile reaches the end of its path, it will explode into a series of icy shards and launch anything and swept away with solid force, with this being an excellent offstage kill confirmed thanks to the amount of horizontal range the move sports. Also, thanks to this move's reflective capabilities, an X player has the potential to maximize the strength of their Sonic Slicers by forcibly pushing them across the stage, or maybe even push their opponent into their Sonic Slicers, should their positioning be good enough. However, it should be known that this move will not deal any damage until the end of its travel path, meaning that opponents might be able to jump over it if they act quickly. On top of that, this move can be reflected back at X as well, so it's best to use this move in tandem with other attacks in order to maximize its potential. Moving on to his recovery special, X will utilize a powerful repositioning option that can either launch him into the air or serve as a fantastic combo filler if the move is charged. The trademark ability of Flame Stag, this is Speed Burner. With this, X will build up energy in his body before rushing forward in a chosen direction, his body cloaked in fire and blasting through any opponent that stands in his way. At first glance, this move draws a lot of visual resemblances to the recoveries of Fox and Falco, with its main difference being how much faster X will travel compared to the Spacies. However, unlike the others, Speed Burner's fiery aura will destroy any smaller projectiles that it comes into contact with, allowing X to rush clean through attacks such as Mario's Fireball, Robin's Tomes, or even Sonic's Spring. Despite this, larger projectiles or projectiles that pierce will bypass Speed Burner completely, so do be careful. While this recovery option is fairly basic on its own, it's thankfully not the only way X can utilize this move, for by performing the charge variation of the attack, the player will be able to change the move's trajectory up to 3 times in midair, greatly increasing its recovery potential and making it a much harder move to challenge. Thanks to the extra hit stun provided by the charge version, X is capable of using this charge special as a powerful chase tool and combo filler, with it being one of his best moves for setting up kills off the top of the screen. On top of that, this move doesn't gain any additional landing leg or end frames like most charge versions, with its main difference being a notable decrease in damage per hit. It's a move that can be relatively safe to use to pressure opponents in the neutral if the X player uses 1 or 2 of their dashes to escape from their opponent's range. Although, against some characters, this might prove more difficult. Finally, for his down special, X will utilize a tricky multi-purpose attack option that can be used as anything from a combo bridge to a get-off-me tool to even a deflector if used properly. The trademark ability of Volt Catfish, this is Triad Thunder. With this, X will summon a series of 3 electric dynamos that will begin to spin around his body, with these dynamos producing an electric charge that will surround X in a wave of electricity. Touching this pseudo-barrier will deal sizable damage to the opponent, all while putting them into heavy hits and then leaving them in the prime position for X to punish them for their over-aggression. And while more powerful projectiles will bypass the electric wave, smaller projectiles will bounce off of it. And it's not only projectiles from opponents that can be deflected. By using Triad Thunder and Frost Shield in tandem with one another, the player can essentially create a pair of walls for their Sonic Slicer projectiles to bounce off of. And since the dynamos will follow X as he moves around, the player will be able to jump and follow a projectile that's bounced upwards and away from the Frost Shield wall. But you'll need to be quick. You see, Triad Thunder's barrier will only last for a set period of time, for once the dynamos reach a certain distance threshold, they'll unleash a blast of electricity in a triangle pattern before they deactivate and fall to the ground, much like they do in Mega Man X3. However, all of this only applies to the regular version of Triad Thunder, for if the player charges this move, they'll gain access to a completely unique attack. At full charge, Triad Thunder will instead have X punch the ground, this punch launching a wave of very fast electricity along the ground that will cover the entire horizontal range of whatever surface X is standing on, which includes the ground level of the stage he's on. As a result, X can immediately pressure his opponents from any range, as long as they're standing on the same surface he is. And if an opponent is on the ground when X uses the move, they'll immediately take a massive chunk of damage and be launched upwards. And if used in the air, X will dive down towards the stage before performing the punch, causing the screen to shake from the impact. A move that can hit an opponent from anywhere on the screen? Sounds quite powerful, doesn't it? Well, hold your OP comments for a moment, as this move's incredible strength has one crippling weakness, and it's one that any character can do. Jumping. You see, Triad Thunder's charge variation has no vertical range, so even the smallest short hop can bypass this move's damage if your opponent sees it coming. And given its damage, they'll more than likely preemptively jump around when you have a buster fully charged. But this fear can be used to your advantage. Is your opponent jumping early? Chase them and hit them with an aerial charge shot instead. Your opponent holding up their shield? Grab them, forward throw them, and then use the buster charge to follow up with a charge shot for huge damage. Your opponent is already holding up the reflector? Let it fly, as this move cannot be reflected. Remember, that charge is not locked to one attack, and if your opponent gives you the opportunity to capitalize on one of your other charge attacks while fearing the impact of Triad Thunder, by all means, show them the error of their ways. Next is the final smash, and this is where X will pull out all the stops, utilizing his most powerful attacks to blast his opponent away. This is Ultimate Armor Alpha Blaster. As the attack starts, X will strike a dramatic pose as he dons his Ultimate Armor, a special set of armor introduced in Mega Man X4 that was developed to greatly increase X's combat potential. Due to the power it would provide X, Dr. Light had labeled this armor as forbidden before sealing it away, and its incredible power will be put on full display as X begins his attack. Pushing his body to its limit, X will perform Nova Strike, an invincible charge attack that will smash through all opponents in his path, with the first opponent hit being locked into the cinematic final smash as X takes him high up into the sky. Catching his opponent at the end of the charge, X will spin around and toss his opponent upwards as he switches both of his arms to Buster Cannons, all while he lets out a battle call as he builds up energy.
Power levels rising! Ultimate Strike!
As the opponent falls back into X's range, he will unleash a pair of massive beams from his charged busters, the red and blue colors blending into a massive purple stream of power that will engulf the caught opponent and cause the screen to fade to white. As the screen fades back into view, it will show X dashing back towards the stage, all before deactivating the ultimate armor and returning to his idle animation. As for his opponent, well, if they're under 100% damage at the end of the attack, they'll plummet back to the stage and bounce off the floor from the force of the blast. But if they cross the 100% threshold during the final smash, then it's a guaranteed KO. As for any other opponents that got hit by the Nova Strike, they'll also take damage from the end animation, and should any of them be over 100%, they'll be instantly KO'd as well. For his victory theme, X will be using a combination of tunes from the original Mega Man X, with these being both the Maverick defeated jingle and the weapons acquired jingle. While every Mega Man X title sports its own unique victory themes, this is by far the most iconic versions of these songs, and once the weapon acquired jingle starts, it will constantly loop until the player cycles back to the character select screen. Victory animation number 1 will have X raise his arm in victory, a bright light gleaming off his helmet before teleporting away. This is, of course, a reference to the animation that plays whenever you defeat a boss in the Mega Man X titles, and as an added bonus, X will give a small heroic quip before moving on to his next mission.
As long as there's hope, we can change the future.
Victory animation number 2 will have X dash into view before unleashing a series of sonic slicers past the camera. Once released, X will leap up into the air and strike a dramatic pose, with this pose in particular being a reference to the same artwork used for X in the North American box art of Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. Finally, victory animation number 3 will have X build up energy in his X Buster before releasing a powerful charge shot past the camera. Once he fires, X will then strike a dynamic pose, with this pose being made to reference a piece of promotional art for the original Mega Man X. Taunt number 1 will have X reel back his arms before thrusting them forward, mimicking the iconic motion that Ryu uses to perform a Hadouken in Street Fighter. This is a reference to the way that X can acquire the Hadouken as a hidden weapon in the original Mega Man X, with it being able to instantly kill all enemies in the game save for Wolf Sigma. This motion will even have X release a small weave of energy from his hands, so opponents standing too close will take a small bit of damage. Taunt number 2 will have X dramatically swing his X Buster out behind his back, its machinery opening up as smoke comes billowing out of it. This original animation is designed to reference X's use of his Buster for a majority of his attacks, so that thing is definitely gonna be under a lot of strain in a high-paced game like Smash. Finally, Taunt number 3 will have X raise his Buster arm and strike a confident pose, with this pose being made as a reference to many different pieces of promotional art featuring X. As it is his main weapon in combat, it's no surprise that every game in the franchise has at least one piece of artwork featuring X with his Buster out, and I feel its importance to X's design here in Smash should be also accentuated as well. X's colors will mainly make reference to the various color schemes he acquires from using specific Maverick powers in the first Mega Man X. Although one color is saved for an alternate costume, as it's one of the only times X received a redesign in the X series. Okay, it's the one time he got a redesign that folks liked. Color number 1 is X's original colors, featuring his traditional blue and cyan color palette that is complemented by a striking red lens in the center of his forehead. This red lens is actually the only aspect of X's colors that doesn't change in between each option, with it lighting up while X performs specific attacks and is charging his Buster. Color number 2 will change X's frame to a mixture of black and white, with this referencing the color scheme you have when using Boomerang Cutter. This color scheme was also one of X's color schemes in MVCI, and is a fan favorite amongst Mega Man X players. Color number 3 will change X's frame to a blend of jade and mint green, referencing the color scheme of Chameleon Sting from Mega Man X. While X doesn't use Chameleon Sting in this moveset, its status as one of the best abilities in the series lives on through this color. Color number 4 will change X's frame to yellow and white, referencing Spark Mandrill's electric spark ability from Mega Man X. Another ability not used by X in this moveset, it's hard for fans of the series to forget this boss, namely thanks to how easy he is to beat. Color number 5 will change X's frame to a blend of purple and pink, this referencing the color scheme of Storm Tornado from Mega Man X. This ability is so strong and covers so much range that it can carry you through a lot of the game's stages, and like Chameleon Sting, it's regarded as one of the best abilities in the series. Color number 6 will let X's frame change to a blend of red and yellow, and while some might see this as a reference to Zero, it's actually a reference to Flame Mammoth's Fire Wave. Regardless of what you want to call it, you're still going to look like a mixture of ketchup and mustard. Color number 7 will take a step away from the original Mega Man X, with X's frame changing to a blend of navy blue and orange, referencing Overdrive Ostrich and Sonic Slicer. It was difficult to choose between either this or Chill Penguin's colors, since they look so similar, but I feel the contrasting orange with a very nice shade of blue made this the winner. Finally, color number 8 will change X's look completely, this having him don his appearance in Mega Man X Command Mission. This stylish redesign features a completely redone frame, including but not limited to more detailed boots, smaller chest armor, and more red and yellow being added to X's color scheme. But the most iconic part of this design without a doubt is X's beam muffler. This stylish scarf will be included with the costume, along with it having its own dynamic animations depending on how X is moving around the screen. When it comes to my history with Capcom's iconic franchises, Mega Man as a whole has been a very strange spot for me. While I've always liked the franchise and its great character designs, most of my experiences with the franchise have been less playing it and more watching from afar, and that goes double from the Mega Man X series. Nobody I knew had the games, nobody I knew played the games, but I definitely knew of them. And it wouldn't be until I started playing Tatsunoko vs. Capcom competitively that I truly wanted to learn more about thanks to Zero's appearance in said game. Nowadays, while I like and greatly respect the original Mega Man series for what it is and what it did for Capcom, I am kind of sad that we didn't get X instead of Mega Man Smash 4, especially since it took so long to get X into an actual fighting game as it is. It's also kind of upsetting that X is attached to Mega Man's Final Smash, as I feel he should have absolutely been considered for a playable position in Ultimate. With how popular the X series is, Rock already being there and Zero being turned into an assist trophy, it felt like the right time. But sadly, I'm going to need to wait a bit longer for the Maverick Hunter to potentially get another chance. Regardless, I'm very glad that X is getting his moveset video, as it has been a process that's actually been 4 years in the making, so the fact that it's not only done, but also my 50th moveset video, makes the celebration all the more special. In fact, it's so special that I don't want the Mega Man X celebrations to stop yet. You see, while I didn't originally plan to cover this character at all, my connection to this character and his appearance in some of my favorite games of all time gave me the push to put together something special. This bonus character is one that many fans of the series love and cherish, and a decent amount of people actually want him over X. I don't normally do teasers like this, but today's a special occasion. I'll leave you with that to close out the video, so until the next time I see you, be sure to like and comment to help out with the algorithm, subscribe so you don't miss a future upload, and be sure to be kind to each other, have a good one, and play fighting games.
Weapon safety's disengaged. Commencing operation.
This is the path of my destiny.
Want to see my kung fu? I'll show you.
Round 1. Fight!